How can commercial real estate facility managers, engineers, and general contractors enhance Matterport digital twins for remote facilities management, remote collaboration, remote training, mechanical, electrical, plumbing documentation, including dynamic data via API integration such as temperature and pressure? Stay tuned to find out. Hi all, I'm Dan Smegbrod, founder of the We Get Around Network Forum. Today is Thursday, June 2nd, 2022, and you're watching WGAN-TV live at 5. We have an awesome show for you today. It's a bit geeky. It's a Matterport mashup. Introduction to Aetos imaging for remote commercial property facilities management and training using Matterport. And here to talk to us about this topic is Connor Offit. Hey, Connor, good to see you.
Good to see you, Dan.
Connor is co-founder and president of Aetos Imaging, based in Atlanta. And in fact, you'll find them at aetosimaging.com, aetosimaging.com. And for the purpose of our show, we're going to do a little bit of role playing. Connor is going to get to play himself, and I'm actually going to be Bob, a facilities manager and chief engineer of Acme Commercial Buildings based in Atlanta, and we have 100 buildings in 25 states. This obviously works for fewer buildings that are under facilities management, but for today's purpose, we have 100 buildings in 25 states. And just a little bit of context for you, Connor. I'm interested in saving money, saving time. Time means doing things faster. And I'm also interested in improving job satisfaction of our team members. So I reached out to you because my trusted colleague, Dan Smegbrod, founder of the We Get Around Network Forum, said I should do a Zoom call with a member of the Aetos imaging team because we are already using Matterport, but we're having challenges. And Dan thought since Aetos Imaging is a Matterport partner, that it's kind of like 1 + 1 = 100. So I'm really curious to find out about this, Connor. So my 4 things that I was talking to Dan about that I needed help with: visual equipment database, training and simulations, onboarding, and collaboration within a Matterport tour. So as I mentioned, we're already creating Matterport tours of our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing spaces, our chillers, coolers, sinks, sensors, all our spaces. And we thought by doing these Matterport digital twins of our spaces that it would enable us to do a lot of improvements to save money, save time. But as soon as we find, for example, for visual equipment database, we thought we could just do matter tags for every piece of equipment, that would be a great way to create a visual database of everything in our spaces. But we're finding it's just too clunky doing these matter tags, and they just don't seem to. Anyway, that's kind of the problem. Do you have some questions for me, or is that enough to tell me about visual equipment database of how Aetos Imaging plus Matterport can help us?
Bob, thanks for the introduction there, and thank you for clarifying some of the things that you're looking for and what you wished you would have gotten out of Matterport. Quite frankly, that's exactly how we started our journey as a company. Is we started providing Matterport services to our commercial buildings operations clients. And there are all these sets of problems that they wished that they could solve with Matterport. They kind of hoped they could solve, similar to what you're talking about. And it really just is not optimized for commercial real estate operations, training, et cetera. So that's really when we got to work. And we decided that rather than waiting for either Matterport to provide bespoke solutions to this or another third party, said, we have all the expertise on operations and buildings and facilities management. Well, let's go ahead and build the software solution that solves some of these problems that are being faced in the overall operation space of buildings. So kind of to address your first point, let's kind of dissect what is the issue really Are you running into problems where you're unable to really filter or sort or manage large volumes? You said 100 buildings. That means you've got probably 1,000 scans, right? And across those 1,000 scans, you've got an infinite, well, not infinite, but a very large number of equipment, components, systems, et cetera, that are compromised in those spaces. Is that generally correct?
Yeah, I would say, Connor, that we're using our content management system, our facilities management platform, Angus, anywhere. We can locate stuff, but we actually need to see it. And when we know that we need to look at this particular chiller and it's in this particular building, we're finding that we're okay, where is that Matterport scan?
Right.
And now we're mousing in to go find that particular chiller.
Right.
And it really turns out to be a bit overwhelming every time we want to kind of query the visual database to go see what it is that we need to look at.
Exactly. And that's one of the first things that we went out to solve. And we've solved this by creating our own tagging structure that persists across organizations set by your permission structure. So you can then assign what level of employee a building manager maybe only has access to their own building's worth of data. Maybe a portfolio manager has access to the whole portfolio's worth of data. And then you can really, the tagging system that we've created allows you to do all those things. You can now filter by chiller and see all your chillers across 100 buildings, immediately view that and access that. You can connect that to your existing data. You mentioned that you're using Angus Anywhere as your work order management software. Whether you're using that, FM360, Building Engines, really any CMMS that has an open API, we're able to pull that data directly into our tagging software and our tagging feature. And then we roll that data up to what we call the equipment page. And you're able to query, sort, filter all of that equipment data across any number of organizations or any number of facilities and across any number of equipment types. So, we've really made the management of that data way more intuitive, way more accessible, and it really built the whole software platform around commercial operations. Whereas I think the original intent of Matterport was to really dive into real estate marketing and virtual tours. It's very, very good at that. It really hasn't been perfected for operations. And that's where we are exclusively focused.
Well, that's where we're kind of stuck. We do have, it seems certainly hundreds, if not 1,000 plus Matterport scans. And so we kind of think, well, we have all these buildings. That's sometimes a filter. We just want to look at one particular building and get to that Matterport scan quickly. But often we need to look at equipment that is in multiple buildings. And so the question is, well, okay, how do we find all the chillers that were made by this particular manufacturer that are within, let's call it 1,000 plus Matterport digital twins? Does Aetos imaging enable the ability to filter? I mean, I just think intuitively you want to be able to say, I'm looking by building, or I'm looking by equipment, or there's a particular system, or somehow we have tagging of what it is that's unique to keeping track. Does Aetos imaging do that?
That's exactly what we do. That's one of the many things that we do to provide operational value. And we knew right away that the problem that you're encountering is something we had to solve. We've solved it. And it works exactly like you're describing. You can filter by system, filter by label, filter by building, really filter by, we expose a dozen variables that you can sort your data with. And that becomes a critical piece to operating, getting value out of your scans. Because it's one thing for it to exist. It's another thing about how do we make that scan accessible, valuable, and operationally drive improvements across your whole operation.
I mentioned that there's equipment and there's systems, but we also have spaces. So, we have space in our minds. We think about that. We have our main engine rooms, our fire pump rooms, our automatic transfer switching systems, our ATS systems, fan rooms, electrical rooms. is there a way to tag spaces so that we want to say, oh, we want to go look at all those rooms across our different facilities?
100%. And I can't wait to show you here in a second. When I show you kind of a demonstration of the platform, I'll show you exactly how we do that. But yes, the answer is unequivocally yes, we can filter by all those categories.
Even before you show me a demo, I'm still trying to kind of get my hands around it, because one of the things that we were trying to do with matter tags, and really there's not even enough characters, even if it wasn't so painful, but we were trying to annotate within the matter tag, either when that chiller was last serviced or when the next service needs to be, or there's some temperamental problem with that particular chiller. I think, we have a very large organization, as I mentioned, 100 facilities, 25 states. My knowledge of all these spaces is really, I think, Dan told me you used the word tribal knowledge, and that resonated with me, because all the knowledge of all our spaces is within the individuals that are servicing those spaces. And that seems like a horrible place to be when people retire or move on, or just trying to facilitate a conversation faster. So I kind of feel like the annotation that we wanted to be able to do was things like, we need some photos of that chiller to show something that's
really
talk a little bit about annotation in terms of photos or video or MEP drawing?
Yeah, well, let's think about this from a standpoint of first principles, right? If you were to think of a system that did all the things that you wanted it would do, what would that look like? That's the way that we think about this problem. Well, you'd have to have a subfolder structure within your tags that gave you the flexibility to add whatever type of data that you would like to associate with these tags that's directly accessible within these spaces. You'd then want to propagate that data up and expose those data to a proper organization page that allows you to filter, sort, and organize your viewing so that you can actually get real reporting and real useful utility out of that structure. So without having really robust folder management within tags, you're never going to get to a proper solution. Then you're running into character limits, and it just ends up being a long scroll of text or notes, etc. So you have to have a really good folderization, really good organization of the data. Then you need to be able to input any data type, whether that's a video folder, access API link to your CMMS, photos, inspection histories, work order management, etc. You need to be able to view all that from within the modal structure, which is why we had to go ahead and build our own modal documentation structure, our own database that presented all that information in the way that you actually wanted to use it. So we've gone ahead and done that. We've sorted it by folders, and it makes it really, really easy for you to access all that information once it's inputted.
Well, we really thought, we kind of love these Matterport scans because we can walk through the space. But, again, in terms of tagging, we found, oh my gosh, even just to put the photos and video and the MEP drawings and some annotation of notes, or when it was serviced, when it's scheduled to be serviced, all of a sudden we found out, we had like 15, 20 different matter tags, all that needed to go in one spot. And then we couldn't tell which tag was which. And it actually is a tedious process, right, to annotate a Matterport digital twin manually using the Matterport matter tag system. So Dan thought you had some solutions. I'm glad to hear that you have some kind of nodal point that collects all this stuff. We're still struggling with, some of our team, makes notes on the electrical panels and China markers about when something was serviced or to be deserviced, and the training manuals, or if we're lucky, they're in a file cabinet someplace. So the knowledge is all over the place. So does the Aetos imaging system make it super easy to sort, filter, get to go fly in right to that spot, and then to see all the annotation regarding that particular space or device?
Super easy. We've designed it to be completely compatible with what you're looking for. And really, that's how we've engineered the data system that we've created.
I can't be the only one that has this type of problem. Are there other problems that you address that I haven't even thought of mentioning to you regarding how you do this?
Everywhere. And when we started to work with 3D space, we realized that there's this untapped potential that is really under leveraged in the market. And 3D scans could be so much more for large organizations, for operations. And they're just not, because nobody spent the time to customize a set of software tools that solve some of these problems directly, right? And so that's why we believe we're onto something so powerful here, because we're solely focused on commercial operations. You mentioned some of those 4 things in the beginning. We can dive into training and how important training is at the building.
Well, let's hold off on the 3 others. I'll come to them in a moment, but just to stay focused on this visual equipment database, because as the facilities manager and chief engineer, I still have colleagues in our team that are focused on security and engineering, the general contractors, vendor management, et cetera. So does the system and work with these my peers as well? Would they find this helpful, useful?
Oh, absolutely. Well, what do you still need to be convinced of that I haven't articulated already? Like what are the solutions that you're looking for that I haven't already touched on?
Well, you've literally have touched on everything that I was thinking about, because I needed help with keeping track of 100 buildings and all the different equipment, and being able to filter by equipment and systems, by labels or tags that we use, and then the deep dive to see the annotation. Right. The key for me, what I'm missing, is actually to see how easy, fast, and seamless it is to filter to get to a spot and be able to see all that tag information. Is that something you could demo for me now?
Absolutely. I can jump into that right now. Okay. So do you see my screen okay?
I do.
Great. So let's just dive into how we solve this in particular. So here you can see on our building tab, we have any number of buildings laid out onto a platform for easy use. So, you talked about you have 100 buildings. Sometimes you want to see data on a building specific basis. Sometimes you want to see aggregate data across the whole portfolio. Well, we can do that. I can jump into the Coda building. I can see what Matterport scans we have of that property. And I can see equipment breakouts of all the equipment that we have at that property.
So if I may, Connor, the screen is somewhat small for me. Could you talk me through what we're seeing?
Yeah. So up here up top are the individual scans that we've gone and collected, or you've already had at your property. So easily organizing and managing the spaces that we've scanned or that you scanned already. Main chill rooms, this is a fire command center, this is a lobby, and this is a fire pump room, right? All of the MEP spaces that we've shown. This is a demo environment. There's more at this building. This is really just to show you the example, right?
Yes, please don't show me anything that's confidential to another client.
I would never do that. So we've made sure that all these are shareable and we've got permissions accordingly. So even at this building level, you can see all that equipment is then exposed.
Well, you're still going a little bit fast for me. If you scroll back up and just go to the left, I just really want to understand this. So and I guess this is called the Aetos Operate. So I guess this is one of a number of solutions that Aetos Imaging offers. So this is fine. Let's stay on Aetos Imaging. I get it that I'm at the Aetos Operate dashboard. So the equipment and buildings, that means I can filter initially by looking at the buildings I want to focus on, or the equipment, which may be at multiple buildings.
Correct. So if I go into the equipment page here, this is where we can do all that filtering and sorting that we were just talking about. Where I can.
And before you get there, I'm sorry, I'm not the fastest at getting through this. So I see on that left side is scans.
Yep.
So in addition to being able to look at buildings or look at specific equipment, I could also go to a specific Matterport scan. But as I described to you, that's part of our problem right now, is being able to find the right scan with the right equipment in the right building. So forgive me for interrupting. You were about to take me through how you filter. And I see some filters, I guess, at the very top.
Absolutely. So all of these represent, tags that we've placed into the scene, into the individual scans that hold data. We call this modal data. That can be general information as to what system that's assigned to. So we can say, I only want to look at equipment or tags that are associated with the chilled water distribution system. I can then also filter by label type. So if you want to call something a pump, an extinguisher, a sensor, a VFD, you can do that. You can filter by space type. So if you only want to look at chilled water distribution system equipment that has label valve in the lobby, we can do that. And then we can even specify floor and really go down to any level of granularity. We can filter by building type. We can filter by scan. We can filter by space type. All of these variables that we've exposed, you can filter and sort your information like that.
Okay, so could you take me through, I recognize this is a demo database, so if I ask a question, my filter request might not be quite there, but I am interested in chillers in multiple buildings. Is that something you could filter and show me how quickly we can get there?
Yep, so here I just selected the label of chiller, and we can see that we have 2 chillers across these 4 buildings. One is at 1180 Peachtree and one is at Dakota Building.
Okay, and in your demo database, if we clicked on one of those, would you be able to show your modal example, or would you prefer to go to a different?
Absolutely. So actually, let me go to a better modal example for the.
I certainly can appreciate this is a demo database, and therefore it's not as robust as my 1,000+ Matterport scan. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So here we are inside of a scan. So you can see I just simply click on a piece of equipment that represents a tag, and that takes me to exactly where we are in the scene. You can see.
I'm sorry, you went a little fast for me, because I'm really interested. You knew where this spot was, but what I'm interested in is how you use the filter to go to an exact point within a Matterport digital twin.
Yes. So again, let's pop open the modal data and look at this. So we can see that this is an air handler unit that's been assigned to the water treatment, and it has the label of a control panel, right? So if I wanted to filter by water treatment control panel, let's just go back and do this. And so if I want to say water treatment, let's find that here. Where is that? Oh, there you go. And then I want to say, okay, I see the 3 water treatment system associated tags that I have. Then I also want to say, all right, it's a control panel. Where is that? There you go. And I can see we filtered down to these 2 units that satisfy those filterable criteria. And I can simply click on the link or click view, and I'm taken to exactly where that is in my buildings.
Okay, so can we do that?
Let's do that. I'm going to click view, and we're going to go there. And that brings you to the exact spot where that is in your building.
Okay, so this is awesome, because this is exactly the problem that's among the big problems that we're having, is to be able to filter a mass amount of information by equipment, buildings, systems, labels, tags, and then go right to that spot. It's taken us a lot of time to get there, which was it looked easy, fast, and simple, actually.
It is. As long as everything is labeled properly, which it sounds like you've already gone through the hassle of doing, then this really exposes all this and makes it extremely easy to do exactly what you're talking about. So yeah.
So you mentioned this is what you call your modal, and we did talk about that. There's a lot of opportunities to do different kinds of visual documentation. Can you show us everything that can be documented about this particular?
Absolutely. So as I was alluding to in the past, we essentially organize all of your data here by subfolders, which you can actually set as a general setting across your organization here's the types of folders, here's the types of data that I would like to collect, that we would like to collect at this building or across organization.
Okay, let me see if I can read across because some of the print's small. So there's files, Angus connections, inspection history, MEP drawings, photos, service records, training.
Right. And
I
these are
don't
all
see
just sample, these are all sample categories of information.
Okay.
We allow you to set the exact standards and the exact parameters or so think of these as folders inside of your data that you can specify as to what they should be. If you want to call this inspection, service history, you can call it that. You can customize all the names of the folders.
I notice I don't see any videos, but I could add a video of the training video to how that device works.
Absolutely. You can add any file type directly to the system. So I can go, and what that looks like here is generally, here's what I can access imagery directly from the platform. We can sort all that in files, and all these structures, all these folders have that as well. I can even jump into Angus connections. This is all mocked up demo, not real information. I could say, man, when was the last time that this was maintained? And it's all natively connected with your CMMS data so that you don't need to do triple or double data input, because we recognize that's a huge problem. You don't want to have to input the same data multiple times.
Well, yes, that's the problem we're having with the Matter tags today. It's kind of like, well, we already use the Angus Anywhere platform for our facilities management platform. It seems kind of redundant to have to type in information twice. So I think what I'm hearing is, as long as it's in in Angus Anywhere and we tag it appropriately, it's going to show up in the appropriate place.
You got it. And that's why we had to create this modal substructure, so that we have these different modals of data accessible to you. All that really needs to happen is you just need to link it one time, right? So as you're creating the tag and you're setting up all the data, you just need to make sure that that piece of equipment is associated with the right corresponding work order management equipment data so that they're tagged up properly.
So, Matterport has introduced a service called Notes, but we find that it's a little bit kludgy in terms of how we would like to use it. I see you have something that says Notes. Can help me understand that?
Yeah, and it's really, we love Notes. We think that Notes is fantastic. We are just taking it to the next level and making sure that the Notes function in a way that is best suited for commercial operations. So not all the features that we want to have on Notes are ready and live, but the idea is that you can have a series, a running history of notes. You can add, delete, modify, edit, etc. You can call out individual users across the entire user management structure. So if I want to mention to a contractor that they need to come out to the building, they would then get a notification on their dashboard. And so really everybody's experience as they log in is customized to what information they need to be accessing.
Should we be using the Notes feature or the Angus Anywhere? Is there a reason to use two different?
That's a really good question. The simple answer is we can't expect all users to have all things. So we've sort of double engineered it to say that, all right, if you have a CMMS Angus Anywhere, you want to keep notes and do correspondence there, no problem, that can happen there. If you don't, or if you'd prefer to just leave a note directly on the equipment data, you can do that. So it's essentially redundant.
Okay, so and we may have some vendors that don't have access to our Angus Anywhere, but we could send them a note through that Notes feature.
Absolutely, and we're even working on a new feature that's coming out later this year, which is to be able to directly send what we call projects. A project could be an RFP, it could be a renovation, it could be an equipment change. So you can send and create individual projects And our vision is to allow for seamless collaboration of real-time projects across your operations to make sure that all of that data is properly assessed. You have a record of it, you have history, you have conversations that happen on this.
Okay, cool. I'm excited that Dan said I should talk to you. One of the challenges that we have is we thought with the Matterport digital twin that we could reduce the amount of airline tickets where, our senior people who are best, most knowledgeable people, they'd actually want to fly the least amount.
Right.
So what we've been doing with the Matterport digital twins is doing Zoom calls and calling up the Matterport digital twin in a share screen. And we find the latency, the delay is inhibiting us from having a real conversation. And then it's really awkward because if I'm showing one of my colleagues and they're going, no, you go to the left, no, turn, go to the, do you have a solution for that?
We've encountered that situation so many times that we had to engineer a solution to solve that exact problem, because we knew that for us to push this to the next level of usability, something had to be done about creating a native video conferencing solution that allowed those things to be better. We've had many calls like that where a chief or an engineer say, no, left, up, down, in that exact experience. So what we've done is we've created our own video conferencing platform that exists as part of the Aetos Operate software. So when you get Aetos Operate at your buildings, you're essentially getting unlimited calls. You're really getting a powerful video conferencing platform that enables these spaces to be collaborated with in these online calls. We're talking about saving tickets, saving travel time to the building. All that's extremely important. 1 second, let me make sure that this crying in the background.
Yeah, it sounds like your VP of marketing is getting a little bit cranky. So, well, I guess it's a new world. We all work out of the house, and it's interesting. Your VP of marketing joined you in your home today.
Sometimes you can't control a 4-year-old screaming in the background of your home office. So apologize to all the viewers.
Oh, that's awesome. Can I think of this as a video conferencing overlay on top of Matterport that's deeply integrated with Matterport that completely eliminates the latency? That's
exactly what we've done.
And can anyone on the call take control if I want to enable them, if they want to ask for permission to, is that kind of how it works? And
exactly how it works.
We pass it back and forth of who can actually move the screen.
So the same way that you would assign a new host on a Zoom call and then allow or set permissions for me to allow to share screen, etc. We've integrated those types of features, but directly into Matterport to say, okay, Bob, let you drive and you can kind of get to the exact information that you're looking for. We can all add notes together during that collaboration space. So everything we just showed you on the data side of those modals, we can now have a collaboration call that's saved as its own environment, if you will, so that those tags and the notes and the conversation that we have during that call can be saved in perpetuity and then referenced back, so that we want to say, man, 3 months later, what did we say on that project call? I thought we were going to move the chiller over here. We went through all these notes. Can I go back and see what we talked about? Yes. And so all the notes and the tags that we conduct and create during that conversation can be tagged and archived for future reference.
Can I save the video as well to that?
Not yet. And a lot of this stuff is in refinement, but the ultimate vision is yes.
Okay, because I could imagine sometimes we have some persnickety problems, and we actually do get, not only my team, the facilities team, our engineers on the Zoom calls, but security, we get contractors on the call, vendors, and we have a lot of people, and it just seems like it would be really great to have a record of that call and then to be able even to tag it to a specific problem or challenge. So when we came back, to say it's documented for even for those that weren't able to participate in that call, that knowledge is there.
You got it. And Bob, think about how difficult it is to coordinate schedules and logistics where everybody's got to fly out. Oftentimes, you know how this is. You manage 100 buildings. You're coming, you're looking at a couple of pipes, doing a quick inspection, and then you're out of there. You know, you spent a whole flight ticket, a whole day's worth of activity, you know, all the logistics. Engineer had to come, walk you into the building, bring you into the space, take their time to sort of, you know, do the babysitting, if you will, of the contract of the building. All that can now be done virtually, or at least.
Well, yes. I mean, what we found, Connor, during COVID, what we found was we actually all could work remotely, right? And we all could collaborate with Zoom, and these digital Matterport digital twins made that possible in a way we've never imagined. So it's been super helpful, but we've also felt this pain point of latency of manipulating the Matterport tour during a Zoom call, and then who's given the tour and having people direct you to go up the stairs and off to the left when really I should just pass the control to the person to take charge of that Matterport twin.
Exactly. So
glad you solved that.
What you wish you could have done, we've solved.
That awesome. So that solves two of our challenges: visual equipment database and collaborating within a Matterport tour with video conferencing. The third item I wanted to talk about was training and simulations. The challenge we have today with training is often our best people are in a different city, and we're either struggling with the Zoom challenge that we just discussed, or we're flying people and we're spending a lot of money on training. And we thought somehow we would be able to annotate these Matterport tours with some type of like, okay, here's, you know, watch these 5 videos of how to, you know, deal with this chiller or this automatic transfer switch. But, you know, we don't know whether they've actually watched it, completed it, actually took a test to answer some questions. Yep. So,
and can you take a Matterport tags and turn that into a sequence of operations? Because a lot of these things are dependent. First things first, then second thing, the third thing. You're not able to do that with tags.
Exactly. Can you talk me through how training and simulations would work with Aetos imaging with your Aetos Operate platform?
Absolutely. This is something I just get incredibly excited about. I think it's one of our hallmark features. And I think, you know, quite frankly, this, in my view, will have the largest impact on the built environment overall. Because training is such a huge problem right now. Turnover is high, expertise is low. There's not enough engineers, subject matter experts to go around. So every organization is looking at how do they do more with less, right? And this is where, you know, when we started to really unpack what was possible to do with 3D scans, we just get so excited about the ability to create custom training scenarios that are then repeatable, trackable, that are bespoke to each individual building or generalized across the portfolio standard, right? And that is really something that elevates training and onboarding at a facility to a whole nother level. And just before we even dive into how, we are seeing applications, not just with engineers, with contractors, with vendors, with security staff, property management staff, at the building level, at the portfolio level, right? So there's a lot of situations where one engineer maybe covers multiple buildings, or a chief that oversees a large portfolio like yourself. You need eyes on the ground at 100 buildings, and you need to be able to see, did Joe pass his refresh training? Did Bob go through the right emergency response procedures for reacting to a fire, flood at the building? Disaster recovery plans, et cetera. These are all things that are really, really difficult to scale. And if you do end up scaling them, it usually ends up being a generic video or a generic manual that is not really specific or relevant to the specific operations or subsystems at an individual facility. Sure, a chiller is a chiller, but where is the emergency shutoff valve? Where is the contingency switch? Where is the isolation valve? Where is the control panel? How do you make sure that your operating staff is trained on the actual critical functions, critical operations of your building? That's where they're going to be spending their time.
Do you have an example that you could show us in terms of training?
I would love to.
Using the Aetos Operate platform.
So let's jump into our example here. Once again, do you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Great. So let's look at how we address all these things. So now what our platform allows you to do is to create sequence of operations training simulations, step 1, step 2, step 3, and input any amount of learning data that you'd like to put into this. If you want to add videos, images, files, etc., we can sort of put all this into this operation. So if I begin this, you can see here, step 1, we call this, again, this is a demo course, but this is chiller operations overview. Let's say you're a new engineer, you just joined this building. I need to understand where the chiller is, how it works, how does my chief want me to conduct chiller operations at this property? Well, first, I need to go start the BMS, so we can have a step-by-step process here. Then we move them and take them from one place to another so that there's that visual context of where we are. At any point, if I need to look around and kind of orient myself or kind of see where I am, I can do that. I can move around and kind of explore exactly where I am. And if I need to just come back to the step, I just recenter, right? And so you notice here, I can then click. It's really engaging. We want to make sure that this next generation of education that happens at these buildings is not passive learning, it's active learning. Every study shows that active learning has a much higher throughput of engagement and learning retention than passive learning. This is the epitome of active learning that gets customized to your building. So here we are going through step 3, read the effector indicator. And my favorite step that I love to talk about here, this is actually directly from the chief at this building, is a manual, feel the oil sump. This is something you're never going to see in a generic training manual. You're never going to be, seeing this as part of a standard course. It's generic. In this building, part of the verification process to make sure all systems are good is you actually physically put your hand on the oil sump, check the temperature. That's one of the steps that this chief wanted to make sure happens on a regular basis at this building. Again, this really shows the power of customization, step-by-step processes that we can create and identify, make them bespoke to a building.
Well, if you just go back for 1 second to that temperature there, because I would imagine with some of the IoT devices that measure temperature, that we could put a sensor there that could show up in the tour. So even though I'm in Atlanta and that device, that chiller is in a different city, that I could actually see what the temperature is.
You could. Now, real quick, let's differentiate between what we call the visual equipment database or the information layer versus bespoke courses. We tend not to mix the two. So courses are standalone training simulations that do not pull that data down.
Yes. I completely understand that,
Right.
but I just want to just double check that it is possible to add a sensor to that reads the temperature that we can visually see remotely within a Matterport digital twin.
Yes, and you would do that back in the visual equipment database that we talked about prior, and you would add a subfolder that would be called temperature gauge. You would connect that to your IoT data, and then that would be accessible and visible directly from the Modal.
Okay, awesome. So you've taken me through step 3. I think there was a step 4 you were about to show me.
Yeah, and notice that we're tracking progress up here, and all this data rolls up to the dashboard level, to the admin, so that if I'm a supervisor, I can see, Connor finished the course. He got this many answers complete. I'll show you the question and answer process here. So there's a 6-step process here. We walk through, and then once that's finished, we can then move to sort of the quizzing, the testing, and that's where we confirm that they went through all this information. So we can ask them questions. what outside elements affect the chiller load. We could sort of say, all right, that's condensation. I don't think this demo has complete or correct, non-correct answers put in yet.
Okay, I totally get it.
Get the idea.
And then there's a way for both the person taking the test to know they've passed, as well as the supervisor to know that they've completed that course. That's awesome. So, gee, I think that even the training and simulations kind of covers my last one, which is onboarding.
It is. And onboarding, it's really a combination of visual equipment database, collaboration, and the training, right? So when you put all those together, what you have is a beautiful pie, delicious pie, I guess, of how do I get my new team, my new personnel onboarded? Well, do I want to just throw them into the rooms and have them click on all the information, look at data? That's useful. That's really powerful. I can look up data that I didn't know before. I can just visualize it. Can I get on a call with him and not have to travel to the building, walk him through step-by-step sequences? Maybe there's a new project that we're working on or something like that. We can use calls for that, video conferencing. Can I make sure that he goes through the top 5 things you need to know at this building? Chiller operations, steam trap maintenance, emergency response procedures. Yes. So really what we have with all those 3 prior features culminates in reduced onboarding time, improved quality of education. So you're actually improving the net result of your training, and it's scalable across the whole portfolio. I see that there's a really big opportunity to save on travel dollars. Totally.
And for our team, I know that means improving job satisfaction for those that really would rather not travel.
Right.
It seems like we also can leverage the experts in our organization to do the training across the chillers with those that have the knowledge. I get it in terms of removing the tribal knowledge and replacing it with documentation that can pass from one colleague to the next, to new people, to onboarding. Are there other benefits besides saving money, saving time, improving job satisfaction? I imagine we're going to have fewer errors that end up being costly.
We could have a whole nother hour to talk about the benefits and the ROI and all that. So there are many. I think you have hard benefits and you have soft benefits. So the hard benefits are you're going to see, for example, in New York, we have a building that has successfully reduced their steam energy consumption at the building because they're using our training protocols to go through steam trap maintenance. They're missing fewer adjustments. They're making sure the systems are being operated at their optimal energy efficiency levels. And you're seeing a reduction in the total cost of steam consumption at that building. That's a hard savings, right? You're taking a $1.8 million per year budget, and now it's 1.75, right? So we just saved them a lot of money on that.
Let's go to Hawaii.
Let's go to Hawaii. Exactly. Congratulations. So those are like hard savings. Energy reductions is really the top thing that we see for building operating teams. The softer, slightly harder to measure are the onboarding time reductions. A lot of times buildings don't necessarily track this. Does the data already exist? Do they have hard numbers on how long it took them to onboard an engineer from 6 months down to 3? That data is a lot more amorphous. It's sort of nebulous, but we do know that these results are happening. We do know based on anecdotes, based on customer satisfaction, based on all of the testimonials, the case studies that we've put together, we are having that effect at these buildings. There's the remote and transfer, and transportation cost reduction. That's significant. There's insurance and liability implications. Just having a scan, in general, you could argue that that's already a value prop of Matterport. We kind of enhance that. You could see service records, histories, etc. So it's really a lot easier to pull that.
Well, I know every year we go through this whole insurance process of getting our buildings insured. And the first thing that the insurance people want to know is like, okay, how many fire extinguishers you got? Where are they? And what are all your, so it sounds like we could anticipate and tag things that they need to know, like fire extinguishers, and we could give them access to this and say, hey, you could do this in 10 minutes to say, here are all the fire extinguishers in every building that we own and what floor they're located on. And if you want to go look at them, just click on it. So I that's not my division. I'm the facilities manager and chief engineer. There's a different person of compliance and security and insurance that deals with that. But I bet they would probably be like giving me a big hug of making it super easy to do compliance.
I couldn't agree more. And that's another benefit, the insurance side of things. Another one I really think is important as an owner. Sometimes the operator and the owner are separate entities. Sometimes they're the same entity, right? Owner operators versus third-party operators. Now, like, who's the real winner here? The real winner is the building itself, because what you're really doing, and this is kind of this whole push that requires some market education, some customer education. What we're really doing is elevating the value of the physical asset by augmenting the utility through the digital asset. So
I totally get that. That's why we did this Matterport digital twin thing, and we love it. It's just that it was creating operational issues for us with this process that Aetos imaging obviously solves for us. So I'm super excited.
Do you see the utility in negotiations? If you're, let's say, selling off one of your buildings, that part of your leverage in that conversation is that the new owner is not only inheriting the building, but they're inheriting the best practices by the engineers that have been running this building for 30 years, and all that is codified, and they inherit that as part of their purchase.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that, but that would be one of our other executives in the company. But I could imagine they'd be really thrilled about how this helped and enable tours of the building for those to help expedite even before people get on an airplane.
And new owner training. So the new owner the building inherits that tribal knowledge that was used to run the building.
Totally get it. I'm ready to load up an armored car with dollar bills and just give me instructions of where to send it in Atlanta.
I'll give you the wiring instructions.
But before we get there, I'm just wondering, it seems like the process of kind of onboarding may be a bit onerous with 100 buildings. Could you even just take me through maybe one building? Where do we begin?
It's a great question, and something that we as a company take a lot of pride in, and we've recognized early that implementation and onboarding, from our perspective, making sure that our clients get the most use out of this is a process that we need to perfect. So the last thing that we want to do is say, here's the software, here's the platform, good luck. We actually have a very thorough 30 to 90 day implementation process, depending on the complexity, where we identify, we make sure we come out of that process having tagged all your equipment, connected it to any API, CMMS, work order management platforms, API, IoT platforms that you need as part of your scope of work. We make sure that you've gone through all of the training needed to conduct these calls. You understand the use cases there. And we even go through and help your team put together a sample course, right? Let's take something simple like chiller operations. We're going to use that to teach you how to put these courses together. It's very intuitive. The UI is really self-explanatory. It's not that complicated, but we still do really go through this, what we call implementation process, to help educate our clients on how this is working. And then that rolls over to ongoing customer success, customer support. We're available 24/7.
I am so glad that my friend and colleague, Dan Smigrod, founder of the We Get Around Network Forum, asked me to reach out to Aetos Imaging team to find out how the Matterport partnership of Matterport plus Aetos Imaging would be like 1 + 1 = 100. So just awesome. Thank you for taking the time. I'll thank Dan. I'm going to come out of character here, and I want to ask you some questions as Dan, founder of the We Get Around Network Forum. What are your thoughts about where we're headed with Matterport? And do you have some thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, I think that there was a lot of hype around what 3D scanning could be across a large set of vertical applications. One of those being commercial real estate, and specifically commercial real estate operations. I think a lot of what we discussed in our sort of role-playing call goes into why that didn't materialize. And I think a lot of people maybe got burned or sort of followed the hype cycle, and now we're back up on the trail. I do see Matterport making a lot of great decisions right now. You know, I think that they've really got their act together. I think they're investing into the right things. And I do see we, at this juncture, you know, have a very robust dev team that works very directly with their API and SDK team. And we're getting what we need out of the relationship there. So I'm actually really optimistic. I think we are just scratching the surface of digital twins and their use cases across the industry. I think that, you know, there might have been a little bit of a hype cycle that was met with some disappointment, and now we're course correcting and fixing a lot of that. I think that's probably a little bit of what we're seeing in the macro. And I'm really, really excited about what the next 3 to 5 years is going to look like.
Awesome. Anything that we didn't cover that we should talk about?
I think it was pretty comprehensive. You know, I just want to emphasize that, you know, we as Aetos are going to provide full service, whether you're using Matterport scans already or not. Obviously, if you already are, the process is way easier. We can just take them and integrate.
For those
but even
that are
if you're not, and you're just looking at it as a first-time user, we can provide full service for your organization.
So don't need to go figure out who to go scan Matterport spaces. Aetos Imaging can handle the soup to nuts, including arranging for facilities to be scanned, Matterport scans.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
I think that's important.
Anything else we haven't talked about that we should cover?
I think just the other side of this is we didn't really go into the expedition of other required services at the building. For example, in New York, local law 87 compliance, ESG compliance, things like I need to do an energy audit at my building. Can this make that whole process better, faster, and improved? That's worth a whole podcast, Dan, where we can kind of go into how this pertains to green building, how this pertains to ESG. I think there's a lot to unpack there. We're actually already doing this.
That sounds awesome. Let's actually plan on doing another WGAN-TV live at 5 and talk about specifically Aetos Imaging meets green.
I'd love to.
Okay, awesome.
I'd love to. I can bring on another panelist for that as well.
Okay, awesome. Anything else on this topic of facilities management, training, using mashed up with Matterport? Anything else on security, vendor management, other stakeholders?
No, I guess the last thing, if anybody is thinking about this and they're worried about price, call us. It's not that bad at all. And I think you'll actually be extremely pleasantly surprised. So yeah, I would really.
Yeah, I haven't even asked you about pricing, and I won't, but I just, you know, when I start thinking about all the airline tickets, the money that can be saved in airline tickets, the money that can be saved in reduced energy costs through efficient training and documentation, and it sounds like it's a money maker.
It is.
On top of anything else, plus the soft things that are hard to measure that just make life easier for the team, which means making it easier to retain people, because it'll be really painful when our team realizes they're thinking about leaving, that they're going to an organization that doesn't have Aetos Imaging as a platform on top of a Matterport digital twin.
And the last thing that I'll leave your audience is, you know, we are a young but growing company, and you know, we have great ambition. There's a lot of things that are in the works that we didn't even talk about today. You know, feedback greatly encouraged. If there's, you know, something that you see as an opportunity here that you think that we could work on, we are going to solve commercial real estate operations utilizing 3D scanning technology, and we are going to make sure that that is a solved problem here in the next 2-3 years. We're very, very excited with where things are headed. And just know that, we're kind of a little bit the new kids on the block here trying to disrupt this whole space.
Awesome. Connor, thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you.
We've been visiting with Connor Offit. Connor is the co-founder and president of Aetos Imaging. We've been talking about the Aetos Operate platform. We're going to have Connor back on the show to talk about another Aetos Imaging solution regarding Aetos plus Matterport equal plus, I could call it equal green. Or mash up for using the platform related to all things green, ESG, et cetera. For Connor in Atlanta, and I'm Dan Smigrod, founder of the We Get Around Network Forum in Atlanta. You've been watching WGAN-TV live at 5.